On today's episode, we'll talk about working in the world of reality television, unexpected mentors, The Office, The Muppets, and of course, how not to ruin a take when you're cracking up inside. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out The Breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, The Musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. My name is Dave Comides, and I am your host. We're here yet again from Panavision Woodland Hills because it sounds better than the tree fort in my backyard. I'm really excited today to have a great operator here, Sarah Levy, who's done actually a ton of stuff sort of across the spectrum, which is going to be fascinating to hear about. Some of her credits, but not all of them: Haunted Mansion, Captain Marvel, Winning Time, Glow, Trial and Error, which was created by my good friend Jeff Astroff, which I think is kind of cool. The Muppets, which is just cool because it's the Muppets, and anytime someone works on the Muppets, I have to say that. The Office, which I'm totally jealous of. Garfunkel and Oates, which I'm totally jealous of. The Apprentice, which I'm not so jealous of. American Gladiators, Big Brother, a ton of other reality shows, which I want to hear all about. She was the winner of the 2001 ASC Student Heritage Award for a USC film, and in 2023 she was nominated for the SOC Camera Operator of the Year Award for Winning Time. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is really cool. We tried to set this up like 9 times, and it finally actually worked. So tell me about your life. How'd you get here? What's the story?
Well, let's see. I'm from Pasadena originally, and I don't know if it was growing up in a town where movies were filming around the corner or what, but nobody in my family was part of the industry. Mm-hmm. But I do remember being a high school student, and Father of the Bride was literally shooting around the corner, and walking down there and looking at a whole bunch of people standing around doing nothing and thinking, what are they doing? And I want to do that.
I want to stand around and do nothing on a movie set.
No, I just remember seeing so many people just, and that's what film is. You know, everybody's tons of pre-production, you're on set, everybody's doing their job, but as an outsider, you don't necessarily know what everybody's doing. No. But there was something extremely intriguing about it.
Did you sit and watch them work?
I did. And I think maybe that was the little bit of the movie bug that bit me. But I didn't really manifest till much later. I went to UC San Diego undecided. I really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. But fortunately, my dorm was near the communications department, and every day I would walk by and I would see people with cameras, and I didn't know what they were doing, but something, again, was very intriguing about it. And so I decided to be a communications major, and all of a sudden I'm, handed a camera, and we're making documentaries.
Oh, cool.
And it just clicked. There was something about the power of the camera where when it was in my hand, I could go anywhere and talk to anybody. And I had never experienced that before.
Because it sort of gave you a pass. You mean, she's got a camera. She must know what she's doing.
I'm kind of a quiet, introverted person. But as soon as you have a camera, you have purpose. So I remember one of my first documentaries was, they say, go talk to a group of people that are, a fringe group, I think it was the terminology. And across the street from UCSD was a glider port with people jumping off in La Jolla, jumping off the cliff on hang gliders.
Hang gliders.
Glider.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that looked really interesting, and I'd actually like to jump off that cliff. So I went over with my little camera, and I said, hi, I'm making a documentary. Yeah. And they just welcomed me right in. I started doing interviews with people, why they like to do that. And we actually ended up putting a camera on a hang glider, and I did a tandem flight.
Oh, how
cool. And of course,
I
did make one big mistake, which was I set up the camera looking at the two of us thinking we'd have this great view over our backs to, the vista. But as soon as you physically get on, the weight shifts, and so we had a really nice shot of our butts.
These are good times to learn.
A good time to
right?
learn. But
So-
we had a good takeoff and good landing.
Were you just a one-person band then?
I
Or
was
like-
one-person band.
And is this just like a little handy cam kind
Yeah,
of
a
thing?
little, I don't know, high 8 it was
Yeah,
maybe.
okay.
And
That's great.
And we just kind of went off and talked to whoever we wanted to. And it really was, I think, eye-opening for me.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So and then you did The Office.
Yeah, right. A few things happened before that. But no, I got out of school. I realized, I was interested in documentary for sure, but also wanted to see what feature film was about. So I ended up getting a job as a PA, which was kind of a funny way. First I had a job as a script supervising intern on a PBS English as a second language show.
Oh my gosh.
Random, right?
Random. That's completely
I know,
random.
and I think it was like something through my university. And but anyway, I had a friend working on a movie called Lost Highway, David Lynch feature,
sure.
and she was a PA. And she got a promotion, and one day she calls me up, and she's like, hey, we need a PA. And I left my job as a script supervising intern that morning, and that night I was taking black and white 16 millimeter to CFI. They were still in pre-production, and they had just shot, if you've seen the movie, there's some black and white porno footage with Marilyn Manson that they were filming in the office. So,
in the office?
Yes, in the production office. So my first day as a production assistant in Hollywood, I started in one job and ended up taking that film to the film lab that evening.
To the film lab. Oh, that's great.
So that was my, but I mean, that was my first mini film school for sure. Because I was an office PA. I saw how everything kind of.
Were you on set at all, or just
a little
in the
bit,
Okay.
mostly to do runs.
Okay.
Wasn't. Yeah, I was probably on set more than I should have been, just because things were a little.
And I was going to say, is it the kind of thing like when you do a run to set, like you sort of find a reason not to get back so
course.
quickly? And, yeah, sure. Yeah.
No, I had to wait for something to come back. No, and the DP was Peter Deming, and I remember just being completely in awe of what was going on set. And I got lucky with the choice of film. I mean, not that it was my choice, but I learned so much. I was Xeroxing budgets and storyboards and production design, all these things. So I kind of got a little overview of everything.
And is part of that experience going, I'm figuring out what I don't want to be a part of? So, or did you know you wanted to be in camera?
I didn't really know. I also thought editing was very interesting, and just from my college, documentaries. But, it was kind of fun just to see an overview. Yeah. I ended up working on another film after that as a production assistant, but thought editing was really interesting, so I asked the editor if I could come intern.
Oh, cool.
So, and that was in New York, and I flew myself out. I think they paid for something. I think or maybe they paid for my flight and I paid for my apartment, or it was some weird arrangement.
Yeah.
But I worked 2 months with 2 assistant editors, and they were shot on film. So my job was to reconstitute the trims. So, they're cutting, they had just tons of strips of film, and I would take, splice those trims back into the reels.
Was this back, because I vaguely remembered there was like this basket with this thing over it with hooks, and you would put the film on the hook and it would hang down in the basket. No, I remember that too, because we had it at film school. And
but
I remember
it was funny because they were shooting on film, they wanted to project on film, but they were editing on Avid. So then we would conform the work print to the Avid cut because they wanted to screen. This is Paul Schrader.
Weird.
It was a movie called Touch. Ed Lockman was the DP. I
Oh
lucked
my
out. I know.
gosh,
My
wow.
first PA jobs, I lucked out with the DPs.
That's incredible.
So, but they wanted to screen on film. So I spent 2 months in a room with 2 assistant editors, and after that, I realized I did not want to be.
I don't want to do this.
I wanted to be on set.
But I think that's so much. Well, that's so much of life is like it's figuring out what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because not everybody goes, I know what I want to do, and they do it, and it's great. You
Right.
know, you got to go down a lot of roads.
Yeah. So after that, I mean, it was fun to spend a couple months in New York.
Sure.
That was as a young 20 whatever. It was a fun experience. But then I got back to LA. I'm pretty sure I just moved home for a bit because I didn't know what I was doing. And my dad worked at USC. And he gave me a school newspaper one day, and there was an article about a cinematographer named Judy Irola. And I can still remember seeing this article, and, she had this, cool, short, spiky black haircut, and it said Lady of the Lens. And I remember reading this article, and she was this real trailblazer. She was the third woman in the ASC.
Wow. And,
she was part of this film collective in San Francisco in the 70s, and then ended up doing a film, I think through that, that, won the Camera d'Or at Cannes and won at Sundance. And she was a cinematography professor at USC. And I remember being really excited
really
want to, I'm like, I want to go study with her. So I ended up going to USC. I was there to study cinematography.
Did you take courses with her?
I did,
oh, that's
but
so cool.
It was a general production degree I was getting, but I focused on cinematography. So everybody knew I was there for cinematography. So I ended up shooting a dozen short films and kind of really went on to that.
Wait, so this was grad school?
That was grad school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it the kind of thing at USC grad school where you go, I am here to be a cinematographer, so I will shoot? Or
no, I was there to be a production student, but I was definitely gravitating towards that, and I seemed to be able to do all right in it, and people would ask me to shoot their short films. That's great. So it was kind of my own, I guess, design of, I didn't direct a thesis project. I just shot a lot of other people's. Yeah. But, I had some great teachers there. I had Judy. I was a TA for Woody Omens, who had done, a lot of the Eddie Murphy movies. He did Coming to America. And then my last year there, my cinematography teacher was William Fraker, who did Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was his first time teaching ever. And he was so fun. He was like, I don't know what you kids want to learn. He really, and so it was kind of like whatever he's like, is this interesting to you? And we were like, yes, it is.
That's so funny.
So I can think of specific things from all of those teachers that, just have stuck with me for, 25 years.
Yeah.
Just, I remember, Bill Fraker, he grew up when, actors were, put on these pedestals, and it's, the magic of the movies. I mean, I guess that's still there, but there was something, he was there in the...
Yeah, and people wore suits and stuff like that. It's a different world.
And so I remember a little bit of advice he gave us, as a student, you don't necessarily know where to put the camera, but you might line up somebody on somebody's face, and he'd be like, when you're at the theater, you're sitting in a chair, you're looking up at the screen. They're bigger than life. When you set your camera, drop it 3 inches. Make your camera, the audience, and look up at them. And not, No. But it was
it's just interesting to think about.
I know, and it was. Sometimes I think about these little tidbits of advice from legendary people I've had the opportunity to work with or study with, and
that's amazing.
And they kind of just stick with you. Now it seems obvious, but at the time it was like, oh, I'd never thought of that before. Even Judy Irola, she did a lot of documentary, and I took a documentary class with her. And when you first start, the camera's on your shoulder, and you want to keep it really steady, and you kind of tighten up your body, and you're just standing there and you're panning around watching the action. She's like, you can be a participant. When they move, you move. You're not a tripod.
You're not a tripod, yeah.
And it's like she really helped me loosen up. And so, if they walk away from you, you walk. When they come, you walk back. Just, again, so obvious, but when you're a kid and you're starting out and you
just don't want to screw up,
you're
right?
trying to hold your shot steady. So, I still think about these little...
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I wonder what Bill Fraker would say now that everybody looks things on phones. Should we shoot everything from a high angle or something like that?
And then one other thing I'll just say, one thing that kind of stuck with me from Woody, I was doing some kind of in-house documentary about the film school, and we were interviewing Woody Omens, and I framed up my shot, I did the lighting, and we did some questions, and he said, "Can I see the image?" And he noticed there was a little piece of lint on his shoulder, and he said, "This is your responsibility. This is your job to make your subject." You have to protect their image.
100%.
And again, I hadn't thought about that. But now, and now like as a camera operator on set, if I'm seeing, a hair out of place or a piece of lint on their shirt, I always think about Woody Omans telling me.
That's really cool,
because
though.
you think, okay, there's 20 other eyes on this right now.
Someone must see
hair
it.
and makeup and the director, and maybe they're all looking at something else. Hopefully not their phone. But
but I know what you mean. I mean, there is this weird thing, especially now that we have HD video, and now that the truth of the matter is, most people actually see an image that's slightly better than what I'm looking at on the camera, or bigger anyway. That you sort of look at things and you go, well, I mean, other people are seeing that, right? And then, you bring it up anyway, and they're like, yeah, we're fine with that. But
a lot of times you bring it up, and we're like, hey, can hair come in and fix something?
Or like, is that elephant supposed to be in the back of the shot? It's like, well, oh my gosh, I didn't even see that, because they are looking at their phone or something.
Yeah, but no, it's like learning what the responsibilities are as a camera
That's
operator.
really cool.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he basically, though, didn't just flick it off. He basically turned to you and said, this is your job.
Well, he didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
I'm the eyes. So,
yeah. No, but I mean, once he saw it, once he realized it was there, that's great.
Yeah.
So when you came out of, what's grad school, 2 years?
For some reason, it was 3.
Okay. Well, you had a good time.
That's just the program. First of all, I just want to say, in no way is grad school necessary to do my job. And most of my experience, I think, was working on other people's films on the weekend and, learning by trial and error. But it was a great time to play.
That's
and
great.
I was very lucky because my dad did work at USC.
That helps. That
helps.
helps.
A free ride there. So I was just there to learn and
yeah. Well, but the thing is, that's like, I mean, look, everybody has different things. For me, it was music videos, like rap music videos when I started out. But there are those things that you do, be it grad school or be it music videos for me or something for someone else, where you can make your mistakes and it's not going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to ruin you. And you need to make those mistakes because that's how you learn, right? I mean, like you screw up or you don't see a piece of lint, and then I'm sure after that you like never missed a piece of lint or whatever because you're looking for it, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want to do that on Captain Marvel. You want to do that in grad school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, film school was a great time. And then actually Judy Irola was the one who nominated me for the ASC Student Award.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And that was, so I'm not familiar with that award. Is that for something, so that's for something that you shot?
Yeah, I mean,
for lighting
I think
and
my
framing.
situation was a little unusual because, again, I had done I did, I think, 12 student films.
That seems like a lot.
And I had cut a little reel together of a bunch of them, and that's what I submitted, and I don't think that's the norm.
That's all right.
But anyway, I somehow...
That's cool.
I did receive that award.
And did you actually go to the clubhouse and get the?
No, it was at the ASC Awards, like the big to do.
Oh, was it the full awards? Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
And it was funny because the year before I was a volunteer at the table signing people in.
That's so great. So I mean, did you go and there were just all these people that you've read about and heard about and whatever?
Yeah, I mean, and Laszlo Kovacs was presenting the award to me, and it was really
so cool.
Very
Did you
surreal.
have to make a speech?
I think I did, yes. It's all blacked out for
sure. I was going to say completely petrified.
It's completely petrified, but yes, I did have to stand up and...
That's really neat.
Thank
that's pretty cool.
My mentors from USC especially. And all that, so.
Yeah, and what was Fraker there and like Woody Omans and those guys?
Yeah, I'm sure they were all there.
That's so cool.
Again,
that's really neat.
This was in 2001.
That's really neat. Although at the same time, just thinking about it myself, I could see it as being completely overwhelming and petrifying and everything else. Like, yeah, what am I doing here?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I think it was the third year. I remember Lisa Wiegand received it, I think the year before, 2 years before. And I remember being inspired by her. And
that's really cool.
And I think the ASC has definitely made an effort to be more inclusive. And, again, it's no longer just a white man's club.
Yeah, which it was for a while. It's funny because
but...
I've talked with other people about that, and I mean, it'd be interesting to hear what you think of it. But I never sort of saw it as like, let's keep people out. I think it was more just sort of people tend to sort of pull in the people who they know who are like them, and it just sort of was this thing that was happening, and then people were like, wait, this isn't okay.
And I think for a long time, there just weren't a lot of women cinematographers and camera operators. And because there weren't opportunities, but also I don't know if women realized that they could do the job.
Yeah, well, it wasn't being offered to them,
It wasn't
right?
being offered. And I do remember actually at UCSD, one of my first camera classes, we were shooting on, I don't know what, beta or something.
Yeah.
And we had one camera and everybody's kind of crowding around it, and it was all the guys crowding around it. And it wasn't until we did our individual projects where we each had our little handy cam that, I got my shot.
I gotcha.
I wasn't going to be aggressive at that time and try to find my way in there.
I see what you're saying. There is a societal thing there, right? Which is just...
I don't know. It's unfortunate. And I think that's gone. And I think now with, everybody has a movie camera basically in their pocket, it's really leveled the playing field.
100%. Yeah, more than leveled their playing field. I did show a little while ago where we had two interns, trainees, I guess, interns. Yeah, I guess they were interns. A guy and a woman, and he was just Mr. like right in there every time, asking every single question, and just blah, 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 blah. And then I noticed that she would, like you said, she would sort of stand back a little bit, but it was clear that she was taking everything in. Mm-hmm. And then she would come in after he was done and ask one question, but always at the right time. And, when I had time to answer it, and clearly having thought about the timing of asking the question, having thought about the question. And it was generally such a better question for information than the 30 things that had been said otherwise. And it was something that I noticed, and it was really interesting to me.
Well, she's an observer,
Absolutely. But I mean, I guess the reason why I say it is, in a weird way, it's sort of what you were talking about. But I think that she actually benefited from it, because she's also getting all the information that he's asking, but she's not asking 35 questions. Right. She's only asking the one that, so yeah. Anyway, everybody works differently. Were you, what year was this, or what years were you in grad school?
I graduated in 99.
99. So was it mostly men in the class, or were there women?
No, there were women. And again, Judy Irola, was, I can't remember if she was or became, but she was the head of the cinematography department. Okay. So, that was
sure.
Definitely
That's great.
Inspiring.
That's right. Yeah. And so so you got out of grad school, and then
okay, so let's see. And then so after grad school,
as an ASC award winner,
right.
I'll just throw that.
Oh yeah, okay, good point. So yeah, exactly. So here I am. I've just won, a student ASC award, and I'm like, oh, I have access to everyone. I can just write a letter and say, hey,
Yeah.
And so I did write, actually I wrote Roger Deakins an email. And I said, do you ever take on interns? And he actually responded and wrote me a very polite email back and said no.
All right, there you go.
So that was that. So right out of film school, I'd met Robert Primes. He was doing some kind of experimental short. It was HD, new technology.
That was a new thing.
It was new then.
He's a cinematographer, for people don't know him.
Yeah, I knew somebody who knew somebody, and anyway, I got a job as the camera intern. And it was my first time working, with professional camera assistants and DP, and I did a lot of cabling monitors and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I thought, okay, well, this is how you do it. You get a job as a camera intern. You work your way up as an assistant, operator, DP. This is when I thought, I was going to be on the DP track. Yeah. And that didn't lead anywhere. But I did get a call. It was somebody from USC knew a producer on a new reality show that had been a big hit in Germany, and they were bringing it to the U.S., and it was called Big Brother. And I thought, great, a network show, and they're hiring green operators.
But there must be like a lot of operators on that show,
and that's why I got a job.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
No, I had no experience professionally, but I had been shooting a lot in film school, so I knew my way around a camera somewhat. Mm-hmm. And I got an interview for this job, and they needed a lot of camera operators, and a lot of camera operators that were okay shooting around the clock at all hours from behind, a double-sided mirror.
So was the technical director on that, was his name Gene?
Oh,
Gene, I can't think of his
Yeah,
last name.
that
It's
was
driving me nuts.
Gene.
But I did ER live with him,
Yeah.
and I did Failsafe live with him, and I think On Golden Pond live with him or whatever. He's like a big live guy. I can't think of his name, but I ran into him at. Were you guys at Universal?
We were
Universal
at
Studios.
No, we were at CBS Radford,
Oh, okay.
and they built the house in a parking lot.
Oh, so maybe it was a later season because I remember being very.
Yeah.
I ran into him and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Big Brother," and I said, "Oh, that must be interesting." He said, "Come on and see." And we went inside of a stage, but there was a house built into the stage. But
Right.
outside the house were these like cameras on tracks,
Yep.
and there were these two-way windows, and all I remember thinking was, "This is just really kind of sketchy."
It's
feeling.
super creepy. It's so creepy.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah, and so I spent my first professional job. I spent in the dark behind these,
It's like a peep show,
It
basically.
really was. And we had these cameras on elevated tracks, and we would zip them around. And,
Yeah.
you pull your own focus, it's zoom, you kind of. But we had, I don't know. I remember I was doing like the 5 p.m. shift, and you would go, and then, they had little cots in the back. You take a nap, and everybody's sleeping, and then you wake up. And
Until
then,
something happens, and they go get up.
So, yeah, but how old was I? I was out of film school, so I was mid-20s, and, I was working on a network show. There was something exciting about it.
Of
it
course
was
there would
also, a little monotonous at the time, but I was so grateful for the opportunity.
Sure. You're
But-
getting
yeah.
paid to learn something. I mean, how
Not a
cool is that?
ton. I
Well,
was
but
paid a
still,
little
but
bit.
you're not losing money to learn it. But,
Yeah.
but let me ask you a question about that. So, first of all, like an 8-hour shift, or how long is it?
I think it was 10 or 12.
10 or 12?
Yeah, probably 10.
And do you have is it, Sarah, you're watching the living room and the dining room, and if something happens in there, you have to find it, or
Yeah, we had, there were the technical directors, producers, everybody on headset. They'd be like, "Oh, let's go follow this story," and you zip over into another room, and
Wow.
and usually 2-3 cameras on any scene, just to you would cross cover
and so basically, do they say, "Sarah, you have Joe, and you just follow Joe, and then someone else is following someone else"?
You'd follow the story, and
Okay.
whoever's face is facing you,
Yeah.
you're on that person.
But
so.
that's like really valuable. I mean,
was.
that kind of storytelling has to seep into you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when you go, "Oh, I totally missed the story. It's over here," or whatever.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I ended up doing the first 3 seasons, and I met great people on
Yeah,
the show.
yeah.
I mean, other people I'm still really good friends with that I met season 1.
That's great.
And directors that went on and did other shows. There was a director, Brian Smith, who I worked with. I mean, we probably did, 10 or 12 shows together, the Big Brother, and then he started doing reality shows that we weren't hidden behind glass. And that's when I first started doing handheld.
Okay.
So I remember doing a show with him, and it was a full handheld day, and at the end of the day, I was kind of in shock, and I'm like, oh, wow, everything hurts.
And those are big cameras. I mean, those
they
weren't
were,
small
yeah,
cameras,
they were
right?
big
Like
cameras
full-size
with tapes, with like cassette tapes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just remember being really surprised that this was what I had chosen as my profession, because everything hurt, and I wasn't in the proper camera operator shape to be able to do that. But at the time, you're young, and you muscle through, and you power through, and you take some Advil at the end of the day.
Well, and the thing is, I don't care how good of a shape you're in. I mean, 12 hours with a camera on your shoulder is tough
Yeah.
on anyone. I mean, that's a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was nobody ever taught me how to be a camera operator in that kind of situation. Nobody, I guess, the biggest piece of advice for up and coming operators, especially doing documentary and
Sure.
and handheld, body mechanics. I wish contract services, you do all your safety classes.
It should be.
You
Yeah.
should do a body safety class, which is how to stand and how to hold the camera
And actually even understanding like what connects to what and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
because
But
I know I hurt my back.
Yeah.
I did reality shows for 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, and just even
I can't imagine.
picking up the camera, bending over, twisting, picking it up, throwing it on your shoulder, and back down, and back up, and back down.
Sure.
Like nobody ever told me the proper way to
That's
do that.
probably more dangerous than having it on your shoulder
Exactly,
for 2 hours,
yeah.
because at least that you know exactly what it is, and
Yeah.
it's a straight line, and oh my gosh, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, but it was like I am grateful for those 10 years. I am grateful for, I came out of film school thinking I wanted to DP movies. And at the same time I was doing these reality shows, I was doing independent features.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up doing 4.
As an operator?
As a DP.
As a DP?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
Cool.
just, small, low budget.
Yeah.
But
were you operating yourself?
yes.
Okay.
So small crews.
Yeah.
I did 2 on film. So a lot of great opportunities and experiences doing that. But I wasn't making any money doing that.
Yeah.
I was working as a camera operator on reality shows.
Yeah.
But every reality show, I mean, there was great travel. I got to go around the world. I made amazing friends. And I was constantly honing, practicing my craft of camera operating. So even when I was shooting some silly dating show, you're still looking for the angles. You're working with the other camera operators. You're figuring out the dance, how to cover a scene, what pieces of coverage do they need.
I was going to say, are you editing in your head or not editing,
Absolutely.
but going, okay, I
need
have
my
to make
wide
sure to
shot.
get this and I need it.
So you're in the scene, maybe 2 cameras are on a conversation, you're back and forth getting all that, but you can't, that's not a scene until you get your wide shots, your big wide shots where you don't see their mouths moving, their details, your inserts, all those things. So you're constantly thinking of all the things that you need. So
which that in and of itself helps you in the long run, because as an A camera operator on a feature or a TV show, it's like, yeah, you're operating, but you're thinking about 4 other things that you have to keep in mind, right? So that kind of mental Olympics. And when you're doing something like that, like let's say you have a scene with 2 people, is there like a lead camera operator that the other person sort of takes off of, or does it?
Sometimes an unspoken one.
But not officially though. You're both
sometimes.
figuring it out.
I mean, sometimes. I was DPing some reality shows too, but still, as you would still be operating.
Oh, okay.
So if that's the case, if the DP is operating, then obviously you defer.
Yeah, of course.
But for the most part, we were all kind of on the same.
You're both getting overs or whatever,
Exactly.
and trying to keep out of each other's way.
Exactly.
That's kind of amazing. But I mean, again, it just must be from doing it so much. There must be things that seep in that you still to this day.
Oh, for sure.
use.
And little things like. I worked with a DP named Sean McKelvey, who I thought was so good at lighting, and somebody who came from film school, also being really interested in lighting. I was very I was always paying attention to what he was doing, but he gave me some pointers that I still think of. I still think every time I'm setting up a shot, which was. We would do these kind of elaborate interview setups and he would light the background really interesting, but he was always talking about finding within a frame the contrast of, background and foreground and how to make the subject pop from the background. So, you'd have your key side, you'd have your shadow side. He would always put a dark background behind his key side and a little glow behind his shadow side.
Yeah.
Which, you see an image like that and it pops and there's a lot of dimensionality to it, but you don't necessarily know why it works.
So he broke it down.
He broke it down and he explained it to me because he was the DP, but we would all go off and set up our own interviews and he wanted them to have a uniform look. And so now, let's say I'm on a set and I'm the B operator and a DP is lit and I'm finding my frame and I'm like, oh, if I move the camera over 3 inches, I can get that little bit of glow behind his shadow side and he's going to pop, which nobody's told me to do that. But if I had a shadow side against a dark shadow on the wall, it just blends. Yeah. And so, little things on, this is a reality show interview setup, but I think of that to this day when I'm looking for that B angle. How do I take the shot that I've been assigned and make it a little better? Yeah. If I put that little bit of contrast that is there, but you have to still put the camera in the right place to find it.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's amazing. So what was the most enjoyable reality show you did?
Oh.
I don't know. Well, you could
Can I say The Office?
Sure. Well, no, you can't because we're going to talk about that in a minute.
fake
but you can
reality
interpret
show?
that however you want,
Right.
either experience or whatever, or they all just have their pluses and minuses.
They all have their pluses and minuses. Like I did, some America's Next Top Model, and we went to Italy, we went to China.
When you go to Italy and China, do you have time to mess around and do
you have
your
a day
own
off
thing?
here and there.
Yeah. But you still get
But
to see
still,
some of it.
we're shooting on the Great Wall of China, a photo shoot. And
That's
it's just
pretty cool.
how did I get here?
That is pretty cool. Yeah.
You know, they definitely have their pluses, and I mean, the crews are all so great, and you just have, you know, it's you're playing. It's like
this is a long shot, but Pauline Edwards wasn't with you when you were.
No, I know Pauline from America's Next Top Model.
I interviewed Pauline, and she's told me about this story before too. But apparently, when she went to China, she had never traveled like anywhere, and so she packed an entire suitcase full of like hair care products, and like industrial size shampoo and stuff like that. 'Cause she was just like, I don't know what's going to be. And Pauline, or anybody who doesn't know, has like very long hair that, you know, I mean, there's a lot to it. But it was just funny, and she was talking. She's like, "Yeah, I'm lugging this stuff around." And then these pros are coming in with like their very specifically, you know, packed whatevers. It's kind of actually having nothing to do with this, but because I ran into it once. When you do a lot of traveling like that, do you learn all sorts of like traveling tips that just make it easier over time? That like how to pack and what to pack and all that stuff.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember specifically.
The reason I ask is I did a documentary in Haiti, and the sound guy that I was with did America's the Great Race, or the one that goes all, you know, everywhere, and they have to follow these people as
the
they're
Amazing
running.
Race.
Amazing Race, yeah. And he had this thing where, because we were sharing a tent together, every day's clothing was in a Ziploc bag. And it was so, but it was so funny because I was like, what is that all about? And he goes, listen, after you've been running around after people for 14 hours a day, you don't want to think. So if I reach in here and grab a Ziploc bag, it has everything I need for the day. I take my dirty clothes off, I put it in there, I put it in the bottom or another compartment, and I'm done. And I was like, that's kind of genius.
Yeah. No, I remember, I mean, in Italy on America's Next Top Model, it felt like The Amazing Race because, I mean, the show it's a little crazy. Like, you're assigned one contestant. So here you are with, you know, an 18-year-old from Minnesota, and they give her the assignment. Okay, now you're going to go meet with these 5 designers in Milan and go. And they don't know how to go and where to go. And you have one crew.
And you have to go wherever they go.
Yeah. So you have camera, sound, camera assistant, and a producer. And you are literally she's running down the street. It's 100 degrees, 100% humidity, hopping on a bus, getting on a train. You know, it's just completely nuts. I felt like we had run a marathon.
That's insane.
And you don't stop because they have a time limit.
And also, not to mention that, like you said, there's an 18-year-old from Minnesota who's probably never been to Italy who's calling the shots here.
Yes.
Which in and of itself doesn't seem like a great beginning.
Yeah. So,
but I guess that's part of the charm of the show.
Exactly.
Right?
So it was an adventure,
cool.
for sure.
That's great. So you did 10 years, you said, of reality, and then did that get you to The Office?
It did. And again, you know, everybody has such a unique path, and I didn't really know where my path was going, but I felt as though I had definitely done what I wanted to do in the run and gun world, and I was interested in getting back to where I started, which was, you know, a scripted TV film, and I was interested in getting back into that world.
Was there something where you sort of went, I'm not finding this as enjoyable anymore. I'm not finding it as exciting. It's time to move to the next. Like, were you aware that it's like, okay, I think I need to make a change?
Yes, I think so. I was on a show called The Apprentice at the time.
Was this with the He Who Shall Not Be Named?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do remember
that's enough to make anybody change.
I remember that at that point the show had lost some of the. I don't know if we want to talk about that.
That's all right. You don't have to go into details.
I have so much respect for the people that work in reality shows. It's hard work, and
it has to be.
And I'm really grateful for my time. Doing it.
Yeah.
Because I learned so much. But there was part of me that also really missed the more formal, scripted world.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a way to get back into it. And it's kind of a funny way that it happened. And it's so completely by chance. Like, I had it out there in my, you know, I think I was trying to manifest it, but, you know, how do you do that, right? But I was day playing on a show I'd never worked on before, American Idol. And I met I was paired up with another guy, and we were shooting interviews of people going in and auditioning. And we spent the whole day together. His name was Owen Smith. And we were talking about working on reality shows and working on scripted. And I told him, I'm like, I'm really looking for a way back in. At that time, Parks and Recreation had just started. And he got a call to day play on it. And he couldn't do it that week. And I was fresh in his mind. And he's like, oh, I know somebody who might be good for this. And he threw my name in. I was also lucky because the two operators, Shauna Hagan and Tom McGill, were people I knew from The Apprentice.
Oh, well, there you go.
And
See?
so my name came along.
And
they
of course
vouched
they
for
went,
me,
"Oh, yeah,
and I got
totally.
a day.
That's so cool.
So that was my end.
Do you remember what episode?
I don't, but
I'm a huge Parks and Rec fan. I love that show.
I walked onto set. It was all new. The camera was familiar. The shooting style was familiar, but I didn't really know how it all worked. And
You were on as like a C camera operator?
Exactly.
Like that? Okay.
And I was very lucky. Nick Offerman came right up to me and
I'm
basically
so jealous right now. Yeah.
and basically explained. He said, "Welcome." He's a very nice guy.
He's wonderful. I've never met
Welcome
him,
to the show. I just want you to know this is how we work with cameras. We often look right into the lens. You are a character in the show. He gave me the little overview.
That makes that like warms my
I know,
heart because
it warmed my heart.
I will tell you, shameless plug to anybody listening. Read Nick Offerman's "Build Your Own Canoe." It's such a great book, and he is such an interesting individual.
Yeah. But he basically welcomed me and empowered me to do what I do and
so
have
wonderful.
that comfort level to, and like not be taken off guard when the actors look right into the lens.
Which, by the way, it might not have affected you because you're in reality TV, so maybe that happens occasionally, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
They don't want it to happen.
Oh, they don't? Okay. So
and
there
like
you go.
in documentary, you want to be a fly on the wall.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. I didn't know,
Yeah.
but definitely scripted. If someone looks in the front lens, you're like, whoa. I mean, it's actually alarming when it happens.
Yeah.
So, that's so cool though.
It
like,
was
what
very
a
cool.
great
And
thing
then
to do.
the DP on Parks and Recreation at the time, Peter Smokler,
Love Peter Smoke.
amazing, lovely person, super friendly, also explaining the rules of the game. He also did the pilot of The Office. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I made an effort. I made a point to sit with him at lunch. And I'm so glad I did because he was also on another show called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And he was really, I think, amused at the fact that they shot with these prosumer cameras.
Yeah, it's like these little like off the shelf cameras.
And he was
right?
telling me all about that show,
Yeah.
and he's like, "You should come by. You should come by for a visit." And I said, "I would love to do that." So I followed up. Of course, this was before, sets were a lot more open back then. I think
Pre-COVID and all that stuff.
Pre-COVID and
Yep,
all that.
yep. That is what it is.
so.
but
I went to
still.
go visit that set, and I lucked out. The director of that episode happened to be Randall Einhorn, who I was familiar with because
Yep.
he was the DP of The Office.
Uh-huh.
So here's the thing. I am not a schmoozer. I'm not like super outgoing person, but I got really lucky because I was somehow fell into positions where I was able to speak with some of these people that I knew I wanted to work with.
But I also have to assume that, knowing you, that you didn't sit down next to Peter Smokler and say, "Hey, is there a chance I can have a job?" You probably sat down next to him. We're just like an interesting individual, and we're nice. And he talked to you for a while, and was like, "Oh, she's actually enjoyable, and whatever." And that's probably
we talked
why.
probably about cameras. and
or
nerdy
whatever.
things like that.
Peter's thing is he's like a speed skater.
He's a professional.
He's like I always. It's funny because he said to me he's a professional speed skater before, and I'm kind of like, I don't understand what that means. Does it mean like you have like sponsors?
Well,
but he races.
He races. He's also a rollerblader.
He's a rollerblader?
He would operate. And for people who don't know, he also was a DP of This Is Spinal Tap.
I was just going to bring that up. but before that, which you probably know, is like he used to do documentaries about like rock and roll bands in the 70s. Did he ever tell you about the story about how he upset who directed Spinal Tap? I can't think of his name. I hate to say this, but Meathead from All in the Family. Princess Bride. Rob Reiner. Spinal Tap was like the craziest like rock and roll things, whatever. And they'd shoot stuff, and Rob would look at Peter, and he'd be like, "Well, yeah, I've seen worse than that," because he had. But he's such a wonderful guy.
He's so great.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, no, I actually talked to him earlier this year. He called me for something that I couldn't do. Yeah. And he's like, I'm like, how have you been? He's like, well, I just won. He's like in his age range, which is, I think,
at like some
70.
But at like some
but he won
non-Olympics,
his
Olympics
division of speed skating.
It's just so funny.
Love it.
Yeah, no, he's
still shooting.
He's such a great guy. And the other thing I love about working with him is I don't care what I've ever worked with him on, and it's usually like half hour sort of, I don't want to say sitcom, that's the wrong word, but like half hour comedy stuff or whatever. It's like he's just so excited about like, oh yeah, we'll get the camera here, we'll do this. He's great. That's fantastic.
So he invited me to the set of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I ended up doing an episode and working with Randall Einhorn.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, Sunny is super fun to work with, but I was also at the time thinking, this is my audition for The Office.
Okay. So wait, but so you didn't know Randall from The Office? You just knew that he did.
No, this is before The Office.
Oh, Sunny.
So it was Parks and Recreation, Sunny. That's where I met Randall, and I asked Randall for a set visit to The Office.
But The Office was going on already, right? Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh,
I started.
Yeah. Okay,
so
gotcha.
I came.
No, I get it.
Into The Office season 6.
Okay.
So I was already a fan.
Gotcha. That's really cool. And was that just a blast?
It was very cool.
Oh, yeah. By the way, if you had told me it wasn't, I would just end this now.
I still say it's my favorite job I've ever had.
I can totally imagine. I mean, it's that. My kids and I, we know the whole thing by heart. It's just, we've seen it so many times. And it's weird. I think you and I were talking about this. There's a weird thing that happened during the pandemic where it almost became like comfort food for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's like they could just like turn it on and be like, oh, this is warm and fuzzy. And
kids are discovering it for the first time.
It's wild, right?
It's cool.
Yeah, it's wild. But what are you fighting laughing when you're shooting that show?
Oftentimes, yes. I do remember numerous times where I actually couldn't physically focus my eyes on the action that was happening, and I would look at the headroom. I would look at anything I could to not, I'm like, I know what the frame should look like, so I'm going to look at the headroom and just the edges of the frame, knowing that the person is doing something in the frame that I can't actually look at.
You can't look at because you're going to blow it.
I will have an audible laugh.
Did you ever blow it?
There were a couple, not out of control.
No, I know, but
I mean, you can find like ridiculous bloopers too, which sure. Tripping and all those things. So I blew it in that respect, but it was.
I've done that once or twice before on comedies and thankfully it's been with good people where the person who I have the over the shoulder of, so their back is to me and I'm right behind them, sort of stops and goes, well, apparently Dave found that funny. And it's just like, you just want to die inside. And at the same point, you're like, I'm actually like sort of supporting your performance on some level.
Right, exactly.
But that's great. Was there one particular person who tended to send you more than anyone else, or?
Yeah, I mean, Steve Carell, of course, and Ed Helms, and I don't know.
There's so many funny people on the show.
Rainn Wilson.
Is there a lot of ad-libbing on that show?
Surprisingly, it was really the actors stuck to the written word, and there were usually a writing team of 2 that were on set, and they guarded a script supervisor. They were guarding the words on the page.
So the scripts were just that funny.
The scripts were that funny. At the end of once we got the scripted version, there was always a fun run, and then they got super wacky, but. And I'm sure a lot of that made it into the show, but they always got it verbatim first.
First, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I sort of have to wonder, you said you started season 6. Mm-hmm. I sort of have to wonder, especially with a show like that, if by season 6, those characters are so defined that it almost becomes easier to write. Not that it's easy, but do you know what I mean? Like at the first, they're trying to find it, and by then, you sort of know how Michael would respond to something, or how Jim would respond to something, or whatever. Do you know? Yeah,
I'm sure.
That's what a great thing to be a part of. And how many years did you do that show?
So I started day playing on season 6. I was full time by the end of it, and then I did 7, 8, and 9.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you. Is there an A camera, B camera on that show? Or
there is. The A camera is. It's funny. So the DP operates.
Oh, okay.
So it's the DP and one other operator.
Gotcha.
So technically the DP obviously is the A camera, but they're on the B cam because
they're doing other things.
But they're doing other things. So, and then I ended up DPing 10 episodes because our operator Matt Sohn, who became the DP, ended up directing.
Oh, how great!
So it was Randall and Matt, and then then Randall was just directing, and then started directing other shows, and then Matt moved up, and then I moved up a little too.
And by the way, one of those shows where the camera is a character in the show. I mean, there's no question about it. Right?
Absolutely. And it was fun because we obviously had direction, but we worked so much, the two operators worked so much with each other to figure out what lines we were going to cover. That was really kind of up to us. And when we'd go over to find a line, there's so much, whip panning.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, oh, well, I can go get this one. Why don't you go? So there was a lot of discussion like that.
So you'd watch the rehearsal and then you sort of huddle and go, I can grab this while you grab that.
Okay, I'm going to set up over here. You're going to set up in this corner. We're going to both rotate, left when this happens. And so we'd kind of discuss that. And then another thing we would do, we would have some discussion with actors because sometimes there's so much back and forth and you can't catch every word.
Yeah.
And we figured out, okay, if we can just ask them for a little bit of a handle, like a little utterance.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'd be like, if you could, before your line, do you mind just saying, well, or something, and that would give us,
and they were cool with
so
that.
You're not just
well, because it becomes ping pong.
Right, and also you don't want to look like you're anticipating.
Yes.
You want to look like it's a natural find.
Yeah, yeah. Which is also part of your character. Like you don't know what's going to happen, even though you do.
And it was such kind of an open family feel on the show.
Yeah.
I always felt very comfortable to talk to the actors, and again, I'd been there for multiple seasons, and I wish I could remember the exact scene, but it was a scene where Jim and Dwight both had. They were trying to pull off a prank on the other one.
Yeah.
And I was in a position where each character wanted to feel like the camera team was kind of on their side.
Was in on it. Basically.
Was in on it,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I went over to I went over to John Krasinski and I just said, hey, I'm going to be right here if you want to throw me a look. And then I went secretly over to Rainn Wilson. I'm like, I'm going to be over here if there's a time you want to throw me a look.
Yeah.
And so it
without them knowing,
knowing, and without even the director knowing.
Yeah.
But it worked perfectly
that's great.
And it kind of worked in one shot. And it was like, I wasn't overstepping any directorial bounds. I was just letting them know I knew what they were going to do.
Yeah.
Or what they wanted to do, and I was just letting them know where I could be to receive that look.
Sure.
And it kind of all came together and worked. And nobody knew that I.
But those are those great moments where you've crafted something.
Yeah.
And but again, as I said, I mean, the conceit of that show literally is that you're a character. People say on ER that like the camera was a character, and in some levels it was, but like literally, the conceit of the show is there's a person there.
Yes.
Right? And you're
we
that
are
person.
not a fly on the wall for sure.
Yeah. That's fantastic. How much did you bring from reality TV to your sensibilities there? I mean, did it all transfer over? I mean, is it just?
I think so.
Everything?
Not only were we just doing the camera operating, but we were also pulling focus. We were setting our iris.
Focus?
Yeah. Well, have you seen the show?
I have, but here's the thing. But
we buzz it.
Yeah, I mean, but sometimes people will buzz it, so it feels that way. I don't know. You're pulling your own focus.
And the funny thing is,
and doing your own zooms.
We do. Oh yeah. We do. We're iris, zoom, and focus.
So you were perfectly situated for this job.
But you don't even think about it because I had 10 years of reality where I maybe equate it to like playing an instrument. Like, I don't play the trombone, but I've seen it. There are no marks on that slide, right?
Yeah, right.
And so, but you just where it is to hit those notes.
Someone knows
so I
where
think
to go.
it's we're playing the lens basically.
Yeah.
But it was fun because I love focus pullers. I don't want the responsibility, but I didn't have to communicate with anybody when to go to what person. It was all on me. And I also find that I did other mockumentary style shows where we do have a bigger camera and a focus puller. And when the director says, "Can you make it look a little messy with the focus?" It never looks the same.
No, it isn't. There's no question about it. To be honest, I don't think I thought about it that much. But and zooming
it's on a servo.
But you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And are those just? I feel it at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're listening to the story and seeing when the jokes land, and we're punctuating.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about having to really focus on the scene. I mean, and be in the
you
moment.
have to know every word.
You have to know every word.
So you're studying your sides, you're watching the rehearsal, you're learning the lines.
That's great.
You have to know them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And are you on a headset?
This is a while ago now. Yeah, we must have been. You know, it's funny, I can't even remember.
Okay. No, because the one thing that I'm thinking about is to do all that and have someone in your ear would be
You know,
near
I mean, the
impossible.
DP is also operating.
Oh, so yeah, there's nobody talking to you in the middle, probably.
I don't think again, we finished the show, I think, 10 years ago now.
Yeah, so if anything, you were on a headset so that he could talk to you
right,
between shots.
I mean, I prefer it where you do a take and then you have
and
a
then
quick discussion.
People actually look at each other and say something.
And then there can be notes, and then you do it again.
When we did ER Live, which was handheld, I was one of the lead camera operators, and there was... So it was the same thing where I was a reporter, quote unquote, but there was an actor who was doing my lines behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a moment where someone had the idea that it would be cool if I did the lines. And I was actually the camera operator. And I actually, on Sunday, I went over to Tony Edwards' house and we ran lines and he gave me some pointers on this and that and the other. And we tried to do one scene with Laura Innes in an elevator. And the second I started delivering my lines, I realized this is possibly the worst idea in the world. Number one, first and foremost, because I am not an actor. And I can act like a camera operator who's not an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I do that very well. But in my ear is, all right, camera 53, get ready for the... And Dave, I think you're slightly focused. Maybe you want to zoom out, and I'm trying to, like... So we finished it, and I could see the look in Laura. I mean, Laura was almost like shaking her head, and I'm looking at her with my other eye going, look, you and I are on the same page that this doesn't work. But that's all I could think about was like having to do all that and having someone in your ear.
I think, I mean, honestly, like when I'm in the middle of a scene, my brain goes in full visual mode, and like sometimes if I have to give notes after, like, you know, or hear notes, like I have to actually do the switch where I'm going to go into verbal mode now. Like, it's really weird. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just two different parts of your brain working.
Yeah, well, and I think what it is one is probably being so overwhelmed at the time that the other has to shut down a little bit to maintain. But I do know that, like, especially if I'm doing big Steadicam shots, like, you know, when you're doing shots, like, as the shot is going, you're following the action and you're thinking about the lines and whatever, but you're also going, I got to remember to ask them to bring that light up a little bit next time. And when I finish the shot, I invariably can't remember all the pieces. So what I'll do is I'll usually walk backwards through the shot, and then when I hit the thing that I've always hit, I go, oh yeah, I have to not hit that again. But I can't. It's the same thing. It's like you only have so much bandwidth, I think.
Yeah.
So where did you go from there?
So The Office ended, and then I got a job. A producer from The Office introduced me to a DP named Mark Doring Powell. Oh yeah. Who was doing a new show called Super Fun Night.
Super Fun
Night. And that was a studio mode, no handheld.
Cool.
And somehow I got the job, even though I didn't really have much experience in that world. Yeah. And it was, my first, I mean, The Office was in North Hollywood, a little, sound stages. Yeah. Kind of in an industrial area. This is now driving on to Warner Brothers, going through security.
Do you remember thinking that's pretty cool?
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah. I mean, it was high pressure for sure. I had a lot to learn.
You were B camera on that or C camera?
I was B camera. The A camera was Craig Cockerell, who I learned so much from. Again, I'd been still doing my indie films and operating and trying to figure that out. I had done one, a friend from USC had DP'd a film that he asked me to do A camera on. And I remember not really knowing what an A camera operator should be doing exactly. Yeah. We got through it, it was fine. But I remember right after I was on the set of Super Fun Night and watching Craig, and I'm like, oh, okay.
So basically, you're just like soaking it all in of like, oh, this is what you do. And
I mean, he's running the set. He's placing background. He's talking to the actors. All the things that I kind of thought, I'd done it like as a DP. Yeah. But I didn't really know what an A camera operator really did until, and that was another thing. I was still at the time thinking I wanted to DP, but I'm like, I want to get on bigger, more professional sets and see what professionals with a lot of experience actually do.
Sure.
And that's when I realized I have so much to learn as a camera operator. And I'm going to really focus on that right now.
Well, but it sounds like that was the first time you actually saw, quote unquote, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but an A camera operator doing what an A camera operator does on most sets.
Yeah.
So that must have been totally foreign.
It
in
was.
some
I mean,
ways.
coming up in indie films, reality shows, documentaries, you know, a lot of it you're just kind of making up.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen like the formal system.
Yeah.
And so this was my first time. And I don't know why Mark took a chance on me, but he was so crucial in that transition because I think he saw potential, but he also took the time to, I mean, I got a lot of constructive criticism, but he took time to explain things and not just don't do that, but why and what you can do. And again, I can think of a handful of those moments, of those little aha moments where, I mean, again, like setting up background. I didn't know that was the camera operator's job. I thought, oh, the ADs do that. But so I'm setting up a shot, and he's like, okay, when you have your shot here, you see there's a whole empty spot here, and then these two people are stacked right on top of each other. You have two people, and you only see one of them.
Yeah.
Like, it's your job. Talk to the AD, place them where you want them to make your frame look good.
Yeah.
Just little pointers like that.
But it makes perfect sense because The Office, there's no background in The Office per se.
Yeah, it's not as staged.
And reality
we didn't
TV
set.
show.
There were no marks on The Office ever.
Yeah.
So, but again, taking the time to explain and not just fix it himself, so he didn't have to fix it the next time. I was going to do it.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Another
invaluable.
little pointer, I remember, setting up a scene, two people at a cafe, and I'm sure, even though I had Bill Fraker as my teacher, I think I set up the shot at their eye line.
Oh, no.
I know, the shame. But,
Well,
Mark
it was for TV, and TV's normally on the same level.
Mark came over, and he's like, Sarah, if you drop the camera a couple inches, your subject in the foreground is going to be now a few inches taller than all the background actors, and she's going to stand out.
Yeah.
Instead of being all at the same, head height.
Yeah.
And again, it seems so obvious. A little pointer that somebody took the time to explain to me.
As opposed to saying, drop your camera 3 inches.
Right, and you don't know why.
That's the end of it. You never learn anything.
I know, and I think it's funny, I have these really strong memories of all these people throughout my career of taking that time and giving me a pointer and explaining why, and now they never need to explain it again.
That's such a valuable lesson for people who know what they're doing when giving notes to people who
I know,
are learning.
it's like finding those unexpected mentors, just and being curious and open to the information and not, obviously being humble, walking on set. I don't know everything. I'm open to suggestions you want to give to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being confident enough to be there. So it's a fine line. But
but I think what it is going, and even if you even if you look at that and it goes down 3 inches and you go, I don't like this as much. That's not what you realize is it's not an affront to you. It's just people have different sensibilities.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're the director of photography. This is what you want. That's what I want to do because I'm here to get your images.
Right.
So there is a lot of that humility. Talk to me about it. Unless I'm mistaken, that would have been the first time that you worked with a professional dolly grip in the way that people do.
Yeah.
How was that? Because that's a whole different. There's a psychological aspect to that.
That was. I remember we had a few people came through in that position. I think it was just people had. So I didn't have one person the whole time, but it was a big learning curve for sure. And I was lucky on that feature that I mentioned before that I was the A operator and I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yep.
The dolly grip. I can't remember his name. He knew that I didn't know. He knew that I didn't know what I was doing, and he gave me some terminology.
That's great.
And just basic, words to say to your dolly grip in a very concise and economic way.
For anybody who doesn't know how to work with a dolly grip or hasn't yet, do you have any of those words?
Oh, I don't remember.
Can you think of any?
Whether you're saying, camera right or dolly back, or because you're not. Dolly back might be camera right. It's
Sure.
so that kind of thing, and. Boom up and hold that, and just super simple. He's like, you can just say hold that.
Yeah. That's great because
stop there. I don't know, but just so there's kind of this uniform language.
But even you just alluded to it. There is that thing of take me back on camera, push me forward on camera, take me left on camera, as opposed to saying, bring the dolly to the right, because the dolly may be turned sideways and that may push you forward, as opposed to, and until someone points that out, or you make the mistake and realize that it's the wrong thing, you don't know that.
Yeah.
So,
but I also remember on that show, some dolly grips, especially maybe old school, they're not a fan of the slider because that's taking away from their job.
Yep.
Mark loved the slider because I could creep in little moves and little zooms and hide the zooms within the slider, So I remember there was one dolly grip who, if I, sometimes as a B camera, you're stuck in a corner and you can't do the move and you're going to...
The dolly can't move because it's trapped.
I remember he always felt a little insulted every time I'd ask
for a slider. For anybody who's listening who doesn't know what a slider is, it's sort of a little thing that goes between the camera head and the dolly, and it has rails, and you can do little sort of super smooth moves on it. And again, some people... It's weird because... I like it and I don't like it. My thing with sliders, number one, especially with B camera operators, is just because you have a slider on doesn't mean you have to slide.
Right.
Because sometimes I find people are like, oh, and I'll keep on doing this, but why are you moving? There's no reason to move. And then the other thing is, there's some dolly grips who will realize like, oh, this is just going to make it that much easier because I won't have to move the track over, whatever. And then there's some who want to be exactly there, and I could see both points of it. I mean, it makes sense.
But so Mark loved it when I was on the slider, and I could do these little, smooth, like very subtle moves.
Yeah.
But that was a show where I was like, I need to get on the gearhead. This is a skill that I started practicing way back when.
Do they even have them on reality shows? They've never had one. The
but
Office,
I
probably didn't have
I
one,
did
right?
one short, and I'm like, I'm going to do, right out of film school, I'm going to do the whole thing on the gearhead. And I got through it.
Yeah.
And then I remember, my first feature that I was shooting on film, I had the same thought. I was practicing in pre-production in the production office. And then, we had this one larger or bigger star come in to do one day, and I had my gearhead, and I messed up one tilt. I'm like, bring in the fluid head.
Bring the fluid head in here now. Yeah.
And that was it. I got scared. Again, I was DPing and operating.
Yeah,
I got scared.
There's a lot riding on it.
And then on The Office, we were through Panavision, and I said to my assistant, can we see if there's a Panahead, something sitting around?
Wasn't The Office completely handheld?
Completely handheld. But I had my gearhead.
Oh, just to practice?
By the camera room.
Oh, wow.
And I had my little figure eight.
Oh, that's great.
And I would do my little, lunchtime practice.
That's
And
fantastic.
so, but again, I hadn't had the opportunity to use it. And so that I was on Super Fun Night where I'm like, I got to learn it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes Craig would, set up a shot and be like, oh, can I do a rehearsal? And
you'd asked to do the rehearsal.
I'd asked to, and there was one time where it was kind of complicated, and it was a oneer. And Craig's like, you want to try rehearsal on this one?
Sorry, but so he was on a geared head. He was using a geared head.
He
most
always
of the
used a
time.
geared head.
I got you.
camera was always on a
you
geared
wanted
head.
to jump on there to go, can I have the opportunity?
So they were setting up a oneer, and he's like, you want to give it a shot? And I said yes, and I did it. And then Mark's like, you want to do the shot? And I said, okay.
That's cool. That's great.
And it was not perfect, but we did it a few times, good enough, and we moved on. But again, like finding that opportunity where you have people that are supportive enough to give you that chance is rare.
Yeah.
And you have to seek it out because
that
doing that oneer and getting through it gave me the confidence to...
I can do this. I've done this. And like you said, though, but you didn't do it in a situation where you're like, there are people behind the monitor who are going to fire me if I don't get the...
Right. And I knew if I couldn't do it, Craig would jump on and finish the shot.
And cover for you and everything else. When I'm on A camera and someone's on B camera who doesn't have that experience, usually what I'll do, especially if we're on remote heads, is I'll let them do the rehearsals, sometimes the shots as well, depending on what they are, because you never want to throw someone in, and I'm sure you do the same thing. It's just like, because that's where you get the... Yeah,
but I think that, my camera assistant, like, poor guy, we would do this thing where I'd put a laser pointer on the gearhead, and he would have a laser pointer, and he would, like, draw...
you'd have to follow his pointer.
I would chase him like on the
oh, that's a good
on
guy.
the soundstage wall, and
like a cat.
Yeah, but anything you can do, and I think people saw that I was eager, and I wanted to learn. I wanted those opportunities.
That's great.
So
How long did you do that show for?
it's just one season.
So was that 12 or 24 episodes? Or?
It was 22 episods.
So did you come out of that and you were like, I can do this? Like, I mean, did you have the confidence at that point?
For
For
my one-oneer. No, I definitely didn't have the confidence, but
I just mean as being a B camera operator on a
yeah. No, I was feeling good, and then I was
scripted.
Yes, and then, but I was still doing the handheld. I did trial and error. That's
Yeah.
Garfunkel and Oates was a very heavy handheld. That was full size Alexa
Oh, wow.
early.
Jeez.
I mean,
That's a really funny show that most people haven't seen.
It was pretty great. Actually,
yeah, they're
I
great.
laughed a lot on that one too.
So you did this show, 22 episodes, whatever it was, B camera, and you come out of it and you're like, okay, I can handle B camera on a scripted show and whatever. So how long did you sort of do B camera before you jumped up to A camera?
It wasn't like a real decisive moment of jumping up because I'd been. I mean, technically, I was the A camera operator on the features that I had shot.
Sure. Yeah.
And I had done A camera on another feature. A friend had DP'd.
Yeah.
And some of The Office was A camera. So
Okay.
I was still doing
Back and forth.
kind of back and
almost.
forth.
Yeah,
And so I did a show, Garfunkel and Oates, as A camera, but that was with the DP was Jay Hunter, who I knew from my reality days.
Okay.
And so we had, kind of come up at the same time. And so there wasn't like some decisive moment. And
so it's
again,
like you're dipping your toe into it every once in a while and getting
and again,
experience.
these
Yeah.
were still handheld shows, which I
Sure.
felt very comfortable doing because
Yep.
that had really been all that I'd been doing. So the first A camera jobs were still handheld.
Yeah.
And then I did. ABC had a one season Muppet show called The Muppets.
Which is just so cool that you worked on the Muppets.
It was probably my second favorite show.
That's got to be
after
fun.
The Office.
Did you watch the Muppets when you were a kid?
Of course.
So that's
I
my thing is
loved
just
the
like
Muppets.
Yeah.
I was
so
a
great.
big fan. Like I remember I had like this Jim Henson book, after he died, and
Oh wow.
it's just kind of the whole history of, from Sesame Street
Yeah,
to everything.
yeah.
So I mean that was my generation growing
That's
up with the
cool.
Muppets. So Randall Einhorn, DP, director, producer on The Office. This was his show. He was going to do an Office-style Muppet show.
Which was like basically a reboot of the Muppets, I guess, because
Yeah, except now it really was like the documentary crew following Miss Piggy had a new late night talk show.
Oh, wow, okay.
It was a whole thing.
Oh, that's so funny.
Kermit's producing. You know how it is.
That's great. I love it.
And so I was super excited. And
Yeah.
the Muppeteers were super excited too because this was totally new for them.
Yeah.
They were so used to working to the frame. You set a frame, they know how high they can go, before you see arm. And now we have two handheld cameras whipping around office style.
Oh, wow.
And so they don't have a frame to work to. So, they basically have monitors.
Yeah.
Everything's up on 4-foot steel deck.
Wow.
They're down on
They're like laying on their backs
or
whatever,
sitting
or
on
something.
butt dollies. It was so funny. They used to be on these, super old school little wheelie stools,
Yeah.
and then they saw our butt dollies, and they're like, "That is genius."
And they all got butt dollies. That's
They
great.
all got butt dollies.
That's so
yeah,
great.
like
Yeah.
the little, what's it called?
There's a bunch of
I know,
different
but the ones with the anyway, it was the one we had on set on
yeah,
Thursday.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about with the steel pipes. I can't think of the
creeper.
name of it. Creeper, is that what
Is that
it
what
is?
it's
Yeah.
called? Anyway, it doesn't matter. We
But
cut that out.
with 5 or 6 wheels on it, so they can just scoot wherever they
Yes,
need
and
to.
adjustable
That's so
rods
funny.
and the whole deal.
Yeah.
So they were very
It's
excited
great.
about that. It was really exciting. It was exciting because they are improvising, unlike
Yeah.
The Office. They really are, and just fully in their Muppet characters, and it was so much fun.
That's so great.
So I did A camera on that, but that was because I had worked with Randall as he had directed episodes I was DPing on The Office, so he already saw me in that role.
Yeah.
But it was funny. I'll tell one story. We did like a little pilot presentation for that, and I should go back a little bit. I was day playing on a show called Murder in the First.
Oh, yeah.
And just a little bit, but it was funny. I actually ended up getting that job. That very first show or the Bob Primes thing that I interned on
Yeah.
way back when,
Yeah.
I kept in touch with those two camera assistants, Joel Schwartz and Chris Taylor. And I knew them for like 20 years,
Sure.
and I never worked with them. And I ran into Joel like at some half marathon or something, and I'm like, oh, what are you up to? We ended up having coffee, and he's like, oh, I'm working on this show. You should come in, whatever. So, yeah, it's just so funny how you got a gig.
But again, it harkens back to, hey, Sarah's available. She's nice.
Right.
Let's bring. We like being around her. She's
Yeah.
fun. And she knows what she's doing.
So,
Well.
funny you say that.
Maybe she doesn't.
Because so here I'm on Murder
At
the
least she's
First
nice.
doing some C camera, and the B operator is Alan Cadillo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Joel is not a camera assistant anymore. He's the A operator.
Yeah.
But that's all good and fine. Alan's also DPing splinter units.
Okay.
And so my next day there, he's on a splinter unit, and guess what? I'm his A operator. And guess what? They shoot everything on this little small techno crane, everything.
Oh wow.
And
which you haven't really used much
I've
before.
never used it.
Ooh, how'd that
Except
go?
at Cine Gear.
Yeah, which doesn't quite.
But I'd been practicing my wheels.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, here we go.
You're talking about like the 15-foot techno crane?
Isn't there a shorter one?
There might even be. But the thing about the techno crane, for anybody who doesn't know, the techno crane is it's a telescoping crane. But the problem is like the 15-footer or the 14-footer or the 13-footer, they're different ones. What I've always found is, first of all, it's not really 15 feet because the usable is like 2 feet less because the end on either side. And because it's so small, people tend to sort of like to swing it around, but the back pan is so massive because it's not really a techno crane, and people think it is. It's really good at like poking straight in and pulling straight back.
But the DP owned it, and they used it for everything.
Oh boy!
So
Yeah.
here we go. I'm on A camera.
Trial by
Alan's
fire.
DPing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. And so we do this first something in a courtroom, and we're just kind of doing a back and forth, and it's going okay. It's not bad. And then after that, my dolly grip comes up to me. And again, this is such a small techno crane. Typically, the dolly grip is going to be on the bucket, swinging back and forth, and on the pickle, extending. And he comes up to me and he's like, I just want you to know, I've never done this before.
Oh, great. That's fantastic. Oh, boy.
So here we are on A camera, and I'm like, me neither.
Don't tell anybody. That's hysterical.
But it was pretty simple at first, and then we got into something a little more complicated, and I got confused, and I meant to tilt up, and I tilted down, and ended up with some really awkward frame. And Alan comes up to me, and I'm like, oh, that didn't really work. And he's like, well, I'll never forget this. He's like, well, it didn't totally suck. I mean, if it totally sucked, I would have come over and taken over. And the funny thing is, they called me again. They called me back again. And I was just like, what is going on? And I mean, he's a friend, and, I've told him this story. And I'm like, oh, my God, I was so green. I'm so sorry. But the point of this, now I'm doing A camera on the Muppets, and we're doing our little pilot presentation. And the first part, I can't remember now. Miss Piggy is like dating some actor, and we're doing this,
awesome.
Civil War recreation thing, and we have a techno crane. And we're setting up this shot, and Randall, who I only know from The Office and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, comes up to me and he's like, have you ever done this? And I'm like, yes, I have.
I can actually tell you
as
that
my hands are shaking.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I've done it, because he didn't know. And I was so glad that I had that opportunity as a day player to mess up.
Absolutely. And how did it go?
It went fine.
Oh, good.
We
There
did
you
it.
go. Yeah,
We
good.
got it done. And so that was, and that's it. It's those getting into those really scary, uncomfortable, way out of my comfort zone situations, and just getting by and figuring out something. And then the next one, you go into it and you have just that little more confidence.
Hey, that's the thing, and learning from it and not doing it again. And or if you have the ability, like you said, on the wheels, it's like, okay, I messed up on the wheels. Like, you know what? I'm going to go to a rental house and I'm going to mess up with the wheels until I don't mess up.
And I would go to the SOC and with a friend, and we would take turns running around and standing up and sitting down. And
Yep.
I mean, I got a call. This is crazy. Rachel Morrison, who I know from way back when, and she, did reality and documentary too. She did Black Panther. We're all so proud and excited for her. And what a
cinematographer and now a director?
Yeah.
Yeah, now a director. Yeah.
And they were doing reshoots, and she called me. She's like, "Hey, you want to come do Black Panther reshoots in Atlanta for 2 weeks?" And I'm like, "Yep." Guess what I did? I went to the SOC and I think they were doing like a workshop
or something?
A workshop, and I went. And I was talking to somebody, and I'm practicing. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Black Panther reshoots.
I want to make sure I know how to do this. That's great, though. That's great. That's exactly what...
I know. It's so funny. I mean, a lot of that was handheld and, again, in my comfort zone. But, there were...
But you never know what they're going to throw at you, right? And
Yeah.
it's all about... It's not about I can handle what they're going to throw at me. It's I need to be able to handle the things that could be thrown at me.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you know they're not good, but just for your own mentality, right? So you can go in there and go, I can do whatever you're going to throw at me.
And it's funny, like at that time, I just felt like more and more of these opportunities like were showing up, and I was so glad that I had, all the previous experience to bring to the bigger jobs. Mm-hmm. Like I ended up doing a little splinter unit on Fast and Furious 7.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was like, I mean, that's kind of a funny story how that all came to happen. But, again, just showing up in Atlanta, I don't know anybody here. I mean, I knew one person, which I'll tell you about. But it was, it's having the confidence to go into those really intimidating big budget movies.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny that when I was setting up my first shot, if you've seen the movie, it's like there's this scene of this, I don't know what kind of car, but breaking out of a safe and driving around this high rise somewhere in the Middle East and busting through a window. And I'm setting up my first shot, and I'm like low to the ground. I'm on the ground, whatever, doing this. And I think he was like, he might have even been the splinter unit key grip. And he comes up and he's like, finally, I'm sick of all these hairy-legged, dude camera assistants around here. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
I'm like, actually, I'm the operator.
Actually, I appreciate
He's like, sorry.
Wow.
So it was a little intimidating at times.
Yeah. But looking back, did you find that there was a reason to be intimidated, or it was all in your head?
Oh, for sure.
No, I mean,
no.
But in other words, like, did you have the ability to do what they asked you?
I had the ability to do what they asked, but I didn't know I had the ability.
But that's what I'm saying. So it's mental.
And on a thing like that, Splinter, I think we had 4 cameras and then maybe 4 other planted cameras. Sure. And the director is like, all right, camera 1, okay, good. Camera 2, good. During playback. Camera 3, good. And mine's coming up. Camera 4, okay, good. Like I blended in. They
Dear
didn't
diary.
know. I fooled them again. No, but yeah, it was. You don't know until you do it.
Yeah.
And you don't. And sometimes you're showing up to a shot and you don't know you can actually do it, and you just hope that it's going to work out.
But don't you find that happens again and again and again? I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm still nervous on the first day of a job.
Oh, of course.
It's sort of like who's going to be there.
I'll never not be nervous.
Yeah.
But, I just keep pushing myself and getting into more challenging situations, and it seems to somehow,
and the more times you don't screw up, you're like,
them all.
my chances are getting better. I'm still going to screw up occasionally, but my chances are getting better. So in telling me about your career, it seems like you've had a lot of situations where like you've fallen in with these groups of people as you've moved up to different levels where they've totally supported you and been there for you, and which is what everybody wants. But have you had any situations where it hasn't worked that well?
Of course. I mean, you spend more time on set with the crew than you do with your family. And you want to be surrounded by people that you like because, I mean, what's the point of being miserable at work? But every once in a while you come across somebody and for whatever reason you just don't see eye to eye, or there's some personality conflict, or they're having a bad day or a bad year or what. So I was on a show. It was, one of the first shows that It was one of the first shows that wasn't just a handheld kind of run and gun thing.
Yeah.
So I still had a lot to learn, but I also felt like I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been DPing features. I know some stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how it works in this level, but I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to be open. Yeah. And I found I had a focus puller who was very condescending, and I don't think really felt like I deserved to be there.
Really? Do you think it was the kind of thing where they felt that they should have been there?
I don't know. He might. I don't know if he wanted to be a camera operator and it never worked out. He was older than me. But
not supportive.
He was, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was, he was maybe old school, Eastern European.
Didn't like
Maybe
having,
didn't like having a younger woman
like having a younger
giving
woman.
him direction.
Yeah.
I remember one time we're setting up a shot, and
It's a reality.
And I mean, I love to work as a collaboration with camera operator, dolly grip, camera assistant. You are the three of you. You're telling one story.
Yeah.
You want to figure out how to tell that story effectively.
And for each of you to go, I know how to make it better. I know how to make it better.
Right, and also to figure out what part does your part, or cutting that out, like how to work as a unit.
Yeah.
Without having to, you can't communicate in the middle of the shot, but you can discuss before. So I said to him, why don't we rack focus to this person on, this line?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where I feel like the audience wants to, whatever.
Yeah.
And then he turned to me and he's like, you take care of the frame, I'll take care of the focus. And I sucked it up. I'm like,
and is this like early on in your relationship?
yeah,
like day
early
one or
on.
day two? Oh, come on.
And
the worst.
but it didn't change, and it stayed like that, and I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody. And
Wait, but let me back you up a second. So, in that moment, how did you handle that? Did you just walk away?
No, I said, let's just try one. I said, we'll do one your way. Let's try one my way. And I wanted him still to feel valued.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not disregarding his opinion, but at the same time, I'm the camera operator and I do want to try this.
But that's the reason that I asked, because that's a weird sort of a gauntlet moment, right? Because the thing is, it suddenly becomes less about the shot we're going to get, as opposed to, if I completely just let you do what you want without also looking at what I want, then you are in control of this situation. And it's not about control, but the camera operator has to be, going, no, this is what the director has asked, and this is what we need to do, in certain situations. So,
but it's like how do you make somebody respect you when they don't respect you?
Yeah,
it's a tricky situation. And so, as a newer operator, I just kind of suffered in silence and got through the season. And it was weird. It wasn't until the last day I'd become good friends with one of our stand-ins, and she saw one of our interactions, and she came up to me after, and she's like, I can't believe you let him talk to you like that.
So this just continued
the whole
on.
season.
And did you feel like you didn't want to make waves?
I didn't want to make waves.
Yeah.
It was a new DP I was working with.
Yeah.
I was just keeping silent. So when she came up to me and said, I can't believe you let him talk to you like that, all of a sudden it was like something had been, like something had been revealed, and I was like, oh my God, it's like being in some like abusive relationship where you just become
like you're suddenly
normalized.
outside of it going, what am I doing?
I know, I'm like, oh man, this is horrible. So again, the show was over. I didn't say anything, but
Sure.
the DP called me for the next show, and I said, I'd like to do it, but I don't want to work with this camera assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, why not? Because everybody loved him, and he was an excellent focus puller.
Yep.
And I told him what happened. And he's like, I had no idea. I wish you had told me. And I said, well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we can work together again.
Yeah.
He had a phone call with this camera assistant. Mm-hmm. He called me. He was probably, scared he was going to lose his
the
job.
The camera assistant called you.
The camera assistant, he was probably freaked out he was going to lose his job. He's like, I'm sorry, it won't be the same way. And I have no idea what the DP said to him, but I've never seen such remarkable 180.
That's great.
It was a completely different person.
Do you think that he didn't realize what he was doing, or you think that?
I think he didn't know who I was or why I was there, and maybe by the DP vouching for me, and maybe he said some good things about me.
Yeah.
And it was fine.
Wow.
That's
rare, by the way.
I know. I've also had situations where I've had, issue with somebody and I've brought it up because I'm like, well, it worked there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. Yeah. And it's just somebody is in a bad place and and you can't win with them.
I had it very early on in my career. I mean, I sort of stumbled into camera operating on big things, TV-wise anyway, very early. So I was very young. And I ran into dolly grips specifically who were like, why am I pushing around this kid? Yeah. And I was always very aware of that, and I was always very concerned about it. And there was one show, which is a pretty big show, where I couldn't bring someone because the key grip. Oh, I've already got a guy, and he'd given him the job, and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And got in there, and from the day one, this guy did not want to work with me. He didn't want to listen to me. He didn't want to be a collaborator. He didn't even want to go, I want to do it this way. He just wanted to do it a way that was different than what I was talking about. And it lasted for about a week, and I tried to talk to him, and finally I called he and the key grip together. And I remember being actually really kind of scared about this, not scared of what was going to happen, but just that I had to like sort of bring it to this point. And I just said, look, here's the thing. You and I are not working well together. I've really tried with you. I don't know what else to do, and I'm open to suggestions, but if this continues, I'm going to go to the director of photography and explain that I'm going to have to leave the show. And he's going to say why, and I'm going to say because I can't work with the dolly grip, and I don't want you to fire the dolly grip because I don't want to cost someone their job. And I said, but who do you think they're going to get rid of? And it was sort of a like backwards, in all fairness, looking back, like I didn't want to take responsibility for what I was taking responsibility for, but I just said to him, like, either this has to work or not. And the key grip, thankfully, came to me afterwards, and he said, I'm going to replace him on Monday. I've been watching, and it's not you, it's him. And I said, I feel horrible. And he said, you shouldn't. It's
I know,
not.
I've had the same
And it's
situation.
like, I don't want to cost someone their job.
Yeah.
You know? And I felt so bad. And he was an older guy who had a family, and I was a young kid who didn't have a family. And I'm like, but it's not your fault. You know,
Right.
you're
I know. I like just be cool with each other, communicate, be nice, be respectful.
Yeah.
Like I mean, we have to see each other 12 hours a day, you know.
Yeah.
It's like.
But I think, and you
Yeah.
alluded to it, and I mean, I mentioned it when I was doing it. I think also, if you're coming in as a younger operator, like you also have to be aware that there could be a reaction to that, and show them that you have the respect for the years. And by the way, use that and go, hey, you've done this 9 years more than I have. What do you think of this? Would this work? And
I mean, working with a great dolly grip is just a dream.
It's the best.
I'll just, on winning time, you know, I had the sincere pleasure of working with Dan Pershing, who, I don't know if you.
I know him, like we've in passing.
He is a filmmaker.
His name's around. Been around
forever. He's a dolly grip who thinks like a filmmaker, and so he's always thinking about, you know, some way to improve the shot.
So great. And
not even our shot, but like how the scene is coming together or a blocking thing. He's, you know, and he's very subtle, but he'll kind of mention things, you know, in a very humble, nice way. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. And like sometimes, you know, he'll say that, and I'll go up to the director and be like, hey, what if we do this? You know, and you know, it's like, but like I mean, not only is he a great, you know, thoughtful filmmaker, but he's a master at his craft. Yeah. So he makes my job easy. But when you have someone like that, you know, it's hard to
mess things up.
Yeah.
Well, it is that thing when you have a great dolly grip, there are times where I'm like, wow, I'm really good. And then you're like, no, I'm really just hanging on here, and this person is doing all this amazing work. But that's what it's supposed to be, is that you're both doing top-notch work, and you're working off of each other. And, you know, I interviewed Guy B here, and he reminded me of, or actually he told me about it, I didn't know it, but it makes sense. Chris Chulak, who was the showrunner on ER and has done a number of other things, has this saying that the star of the show is the show. It's not about the operator, it's not about the dolly grip, it's not about the first AC, it's the story. And if whoever comes up with the better way to tell that story, that's the way to go. It's not about ego, it's about, you know, making the show better.
Yeah.
You know? So you mentioned winning time. Was it just a blast to be working with, like, because it's like, what was it, like 16 and 35 and video and
I mean, there were so many different formats, and also it was funny when I got a call from the DP, Todd Van Hazel, about the show originally. I'm not a big sports person, but I did grow up in LA in the 80s, and the one team I followed, I followed the Lakers in the 80s.
They had the best colors, right?
I mean, I was a big fan. I mean, it didn't last, but at that period I was. Yeah. So I was excited to help recreate that story.
Also, it's such a cool period piece. I mean, that one thing about that show, and it's partially because of how it's shot, is like it feels like you're watching it back in the 80s with that bad video and all that crazy stuff.
But no, it was really fun. I've never done a 6-month show on 35. And,
sure.
You know, the other operators, we were all collectively nominated for Operator of the Year. Yeah. I mean, everybody just brought so much to the table. So that was definitely an exciting.
Who makes the decision of which format to shoot?
That was Todd.
But it's by design.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
It was primarily 35, but then Justin Cameron was on the Ikegami video, doing kind of the period video, and then he was also on all the Super 8 doing all the.
Oh, so you shoot those other things like simultaneously while you're quote unquote shooting the show.
And then Dominic Bartoloni and I were doing the 35, but then sometimes one of us would jump on 16. Depending on.
That's great.
Yeah, like 16 was kind of the more documentary.
And did you sort of like when you went to the 16 and when they were on the video, did you sort of like, did you adjust headroom and stuff to sort of feel more like that time period? Like, did you change the way you shot a little bit?
I don't think so.
Purposely? Yeah.
No, I don't think that wasn't really a discussion. But it was interesting. At the beginning, Todd gave us a extremely detailed kind of lookbook of what he was going for, and a whole list of movies clips to watch, and just great. So we could all have that shorthand of like, oh, this is going to be like that scene from such and such, and it's I always love it when a DP has a strong visual style and then wants to communicate that ahead of time, so you know what you're all looking for. Yeah,
and that must have been great because you've got the sort of quote-unquote studio stuff that you're shooting, but then you have all that stuff that probably harkens back to your reality stuff.
Oh, yeah,
too.
And my favorite time were when I just got the 16-millimeter camera and just got to
ran around
be in the mix and just finding stuff and on the zoom lens. And
that's awesome.
No, it was super. That was really fun.
That's great. You mentioned the SOC before. Can you tell me about the SOC and what that's involvement with that and what your thoughts are? Yeah,
I mean, I didn't really get involved with the SOC until the pandemic and the lockdown. I mean, I've been a member.
Yeah.
Actually, I joined, I don't even know how long ago, 15 years? I have no idea. But I was definitely interested in joining, and I knew the president at the time when I joined was Dan Neese.
Okay.
Legendary Steadicam operator.
Wonderful guy.
And I had met Dan on my first PA job on Lost Highway.
No way. Oh, because he was like Mr. David Lynch.
He was the Steadicam operator, and we stayed in touch all those years.
Such a lovely, lovely person.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame he passed away, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't know.
But I was interested in the SOC. I was mostly doing reality at the time, and again, we both lived in Venice, we were friends, and I said, I'm interested in joining this organization. And he actually I was met with a little bit of resistance because I was primarily a reality operator.
Oh yeah, there probably weren't a lot of reality operators back then.
There
weren't. But
and I said, well, I mean, I'm working. I have a career. I'm making money. This is what I do. I'm a camera operator. And I work in reality. Yeah. And he's like, would you be interested in an associate membership? I'm like, no.
Good for you.
I've been an operator for 10 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so he did sponsor me, and I joined. But I wasn't that involved until the pandemic, and really Mitch Dubin got me pretty involved. Mm-hmm. I had met Mitch before the pandemic through other SOC events, and actually I did a movie with him called Lucy in the Sky. It was his B operator.
Oh, cool.
And I joined the education committee, and we were just doing seminars and mentorships. And Jeff Haley, created this mentorship program, which I was participating in. So, I think it's such a valuable resource, and I'm now on the board of governors, and I just, especially for up and coming operators, to get those connections and get the resources and the workshops and. Yeah. Yeah,
I think I don't disagree. And you can join, I don't even know, associate membership is like $50 a year. It's not much.
I don't remember.
But because you have to have had, I think it's 5 years of operating.
5 years to be an actor.
5 years, 5 years consecutive operating to become a full-fledged member. But you still, you get access to all those people, and you can call up Mitch Dubin, who's Spielberg's operator, and say, hey, can I ask you about this, how to do this or whatever. And most people are.
He's been extremely supportive in my career. And I know, on some of these bigger projects, I know I've had opportunities because I am a woman operator.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, and
how does that make you? Does that bother you? Does that weigh on you? Does that?
of course, you want to be hired for your skill as an operator, not as a woman operator.
Sure.
But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people are making more of an effort to level the playing field, give opportunities, and if there's going to be a woman on B camera, it might as well be me.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, but I had an opportunity to do Captain Marvel on B camera.
Okay.
And that was definitely my biggest feature.
You did the whole movie?
I did the whole movie.
That's great.
Jeff Haley was on a camera. I knew Jeff. It was kind of funny. Jeff was childhood best friends with our boom operator on The Office.
Okay. All right.
So I knew Jeff from way back when.
Yeah.
We brought him in, a couple of times to do. It's funny.
To The Office?
Yeah, because Jeff is, big A-list, whatever. But
yeah.
we brought him in a couple of times to do C camera. Just, we had time, whatever.
Yeah.
And Brian, our boom op, and Jeff and I. So Jeff was doing these. So random. He was directing these UCLA health. I mean, this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
12, 13 years, 14 years. He was directing these UCLA health, some kind of videos. So he directed
like public service announcements?
No, I don't know, some in-house. I don't even know what we're doing.
Jeff Haley is one of the most bizarrely interesting people. He has so many different things going on.
Well, this was a long time ago.
Yeah,
but Brian would boom, he would direct, and I was operating.
Oh, that's great.
So we did those for a while, and then, he's created this mentorship program. He's extremely supportive.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody can reach out to him and ask him.
Absolutely.
But he definitely gave me my first opportunities as, on some big features. So he was the one that invited me to come and do the Splinter unit on Fast and Furious 7.
I was wondering Fast and Furious because he's done like 1 through 15 or whatever.
And
he's
then,
done a bunch of them.
I ended up working on... So that started as just the Splinter unit. But then when Paul Walker passed away, they shut down. And when they started up again, it was a very unusual situation. His brother was filling in for him.
Oh, wow.
To finish the movie. And they needed a lot of camera operators. Because they were basically digitally replacing.
Yeah, they needed
so
interesting.
I ended up doing, we had like an A, B, C, D, and an X, Y, Z camera. I think I was doing D or C camera for some of that. And so I ended up doing 6 weeks on that.
Oh, okay.
So kind of my first, big feature.
Yeah.
And then I ended up doing, he asked me to do a couple weeks on Avengers, which again was, the
Huge.
biggest,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get much bigger.
No.
And then I was kind of in this little Marvel period and then I did the Rachel Morrison Black Panther. So he got Captain Marvel to do. He was booked to do a camera, and he pitched to the directors. I know a woman operator, and I think it was as a directing team, man and woman, doing Captain Marvel, and I think they thought, and it's again a protagonist is woman, and they thought it was a cool idea to have a woman on B camera.
Yeah.
So I remember saying to Jeff, I'm like, there's a lot of people in this town that have huge feature experience, and I've just done a handful. Are you sure you want me to do this?
That's fair of you. I mean, that's cool.
I know. I just wanted to make sure it was the right choice because, again, this was out of my comfort zone,
Yep.
And he's like, I think you'd be great for the job.
That's great. And I'm sure you did great. Was it a good experience?
It was a good experience.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. And we're talking about learning on the job and doing shots that you've never done before and hopefully as a day player and, not a lot writing on it. But Jeff was throwing me in the mix.
I'm sure.
And he was having me do A shots on huge cranes.
That's great.
And I'm like, okay, are you sure? And like we did this one motion control thing that my camera happened to be on the rig but it was motion control, but I still had to operate. I don't remember exactly the details. And I'm the B operator. B camera's on this rig. It's definitely an A shot.
Yeah.
And it was the last shot of the night, and it was a big stunt. And Jeff's like, "All right, you good?
I'm going home.
I'm going." I'm like,
and you're sitting there going, "Wait, no, don't." Yeah.
And I got really lucky. We got it in one.
I don't think
we got
you
it in
lucky.
one, and everyone called Raph and
yeah.
But I mean, I'm so he took a huge chance on me, you know.
Sure, but and I'm not belittling it, but I think everybody does that at some point. Everybody has to have a shot at some point.
Yeah.
And the thing is, from your point of view, he took a huge chance on you. I know, knowing Jeff, that he didn't think he was taking a huge chance on you. You just hadn't had the chance to show that you can accomplish this yet.
Right.
You know? Like, he wouldn't have brought you on if he thought you were going to fail. You know?
No, I know.
He's smarter than that.
He can't. Yes, it would look bad on him if he brought somebody who couldn't do the job.
And also, by the way, it would be unfair to you. I mean, that's another thing
Yeah.
that I know. Like, you know, I've tried to bring people up, and it's like you don't want to bring someone up faster than they should be, because that can be hugely detrimental on a lot of levels,
Yeah.
mentally and every other way.
But I think about, you know, being on that techno crane on Captain Marvel, and I just think about that first time, and I think of Alan Cadillo's words.
Yeah, it didn't
It
completely.
did totally suck. And I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful for that mess up
Yeah,
all those years ago, because if I hadn't had that mess up, I wouldn't be here right now.
yeah, yeah.
So it's just, you know, learning from all those little mistakes along the way.
Look, the first job I ever got fired off of was my first 8-camera job on a TV show, and I lasted less than a week, and I got fired because I did not know what I was doing. And after being very depressed for a couple of days and eating a lot of food I probably shouldn't have eaten and drinking too much, I just decided I was going to go on every show I could on B camera and soak up everything I could. And the next job that I got called for as an A-camera operator was ER. And it was a while later, but I would not have been ready for that if I hadn't gotten fired off of that first one. So I think it's not about falling doing, because everybody does. It's about how you get back up and what you take from it, right? So
Yeah. And I mean, I'll never stop learning.
yeah.
And I love doing A-camera because you're, you know, just really in the mix and super creative. But I love doing B-camera because it gives you the opportunities to learn from
Sure.
more experienced A operators. And also, B-camera, you're given a lot of times you're given the freedom to kind of find your own cool shots and pitch them, and, you know, bring something that maybe the DP didn't even think about.
Absolutely.
So,
and are you, as a B camera operator, usually standing off on the side, sort of looking for those opportunities
Always.
to pitch?
I mean, I really don't like to sit around and do nothing. Like, that is my when I get onto set, that's my one objective, not to, like, so if, you know, a lot of times DP will say, it's one camera, you know, and if I'm doing B camera, the idea is that I go off and do something else. But I'll watch the rehearsal, and I'll watch where the camera is, and I'll see where the actors are, and a lot of more times than not, you'll see an angle that is lit nicely and will not get in the way of anybody else. And I'll go up to the DP and say, hey, you know, during that rehearsal, I noticed there's an opportunity for a shot here. A lot of times they'll be like, nope, I just want to do one. A lot of times they'll be like, yeah, show me.
Yeah.
And I'll set it up, and then they'll say, yep, let's do it, or no, I don't need it. But at least we're, you know, staying involved and attentive, and you know what? If they can save a setup for something that I just tossed out there, why not?
Sure.
So.
And do you go over with the Artemis and snap a picture and show it to them, kind of thing, so that they don't have to?
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's invaluable. And the weird thing about that is, as a new operator, I remember it was always like, you want to pitch, but you don't want to pitch too much, because you don't want to be like the bird on their shoulder
You
going,
don't want to
I
be
can do
annoying.
something. I can do something.
Yes. I know. There's definitely a fine line,
There's
and
a fine line.
I know when they really want to do one camera. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times I will have just that shot on Artemis and be like, I could get this if you want it.
If this works for you,
Yeah.
does this have value?
Yeah.
All those.
But again, it's, you know, on a set, there's a lot of stresses going on. There's a lot of personalities, a lot of politics, and you really have to find that right time to talk to people and the right time to pitch something, and when to just disappear. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's valuable.
And you can only learn that from experience and just watching how other people work. So.
And watching people fail. That's the best way to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Or failing yourself. Well, this has been really great. I really appreciate this. I'm going to leave you with the thing that I leave everybody with, which is someone starting out in the business, someone moving up to operator, maybe moving from B to A, or you talking to yourself 10, 15 years ago. What advice do you have for succeeding in this business?
My advice for newer operators, I mean, a couple of things, and I think I touched on them. Just, you never know what what camera assistant today is going to be your boss, your DP in a month. Treat everybody with the same respect that you'd want to be treated with. These are the people you see 10, 12, 14 hours a day, 5 days a week. Just be cool with each other. Be nice. And the other thing is take care of yourself. You know, when you're get enough sleep, hydrate. Watch how you're when you're crammed into a corner and you're in the most uncomfortable position. Think about how your body's going to feel in an hour when you have to do some crazy handheld shot. You know, you have to think about body mechanics and strength training and all the things to keep yourself healthy for a long career.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.